All right, what's going on, everybody? Hope everyone's having a good week, and I hope everyone has a good weekend. All right, let me set everything up. All right, couple fights. Hopefully, this is not going to be too long of a live. I'm not trying to stay on too long today. But let's talk about the fight that's coming up this weekend. Jake Paul against Tyron Woodley. This is going to be on Showtime pay-per-view, 8 p.m. Eastern, Sunday evening. It's not going to be Saturday evening. It's going to be Sunday. What's up, D-Style? What's up, everyone that's coming in? So I'm going to try to cover this fight. I'm going to try to work around covering this. I want to really cover this fight. This is like the first YouTube fight that I really care about. I haven't been able to cover any of the fights. I think Roy Jones and Tyson might have been the only one I did. But and that's not a YouTube fight, but I'm just saying as far as like the celebrity fights at this point or legends fights or anything like that, I haven't really been able to cover any of them, but I definitely want to see this fight. I'm actually pretty excited about it. I do like Tyron Woodley. You know, I did follow his MMA career. Even though I'm like a casual MMA fan now, I'm more like an old school UFC MMA fan. But I did watch Woodley a lot in the UFC. All right. And I'm a big fan of him. And I'm rooting for him to win this fight this weekend. All right. I don't know if he's going to do it. That's a different story, but we'll talk about that. On top of that, I'm going to discuss the Warrington Lara 2 fight, which is actually next Saturday. All right. I'm going to talk about it here in this video. I want to kind of get it out of the way because I did watch the first fight again the other day, and I came up with, the conclusion, and I was going to wait to midweek, but I want to get it out of the way in this live today. All right. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about Woodley and Paul and a little bit of the undercard. I'm not going to go too deep into that. A lot of big names on the undercard of this fight, but not really good fights. I think the Serrano Mercado fight is probably like, as far as like matchups are concerned, that's probably the best matchup. But outside of that, you just have a bunch of people with names fighting. You got Daniel Dubois fighting. You got Baranchek's fighting, and I hope he wins, man, because I think another loss on his record right now would turn him kind of into like a gatekeeper, if he is to lose again this early in his career, so hopefully he could pull off a win. I don't know if he's won since that big knockout loss to Cepeda last year, which was one of the better fights of the year, but he's going to be on the card. And you have Tommy Fury against this random dude that's in the MMA that's fighting. I'm going to address all of that stuff. But not a lot of fights going on. Not much to really talk about. But we're going to get over these fights that's coming up this week. And then we get to talk about Joshua and Usyk and all of the other fights that are scheduled, all right, that I haven't done breakdowns on yet. All right, but shout out to everyone that's coming in here. Lee says boxing has turned into garbage. Yeah, it's been kind of garbage, to be honest, for a little bit. I think we've had our ups and downs. We've had some great fights, but I think since the pandemic, it's been pretty bad. Outside of a few fights, it hasn't been consistent, and we've been getting a lot of robberies. For some reason, it's just been like robbery central, and then we've been getting all the fight cancellations, COVID, injuries, sanctioning bodies has been at its worst. It's been a lot of stuff going on. I made a video not too long ago addressing the fans. And we're going to talk all about all of that. All right. But real quick, before we get into the Jake Paul card, I want to discuss Josh Warrington against Mauricio Lara too. All right. Now that's going to be next weekend. That's going to be next Saturday on DAZN. All right. This is going to be the rematch. Lara kind of pulled the upset last time they fought. Wasn't expecting that. It wasn't a championship fight. Warrington had just got stripped by the IBF, I believe. Okay. But I remember watching the fight and Warrington getting stopped in the 9th round. It was a huge upset, in my opinion. Warrington was undefeated at the time, even though I don't think he should have been, because I thought he clearly lost to Kid Galahad. All right. So look, the way I see this fight, and we're gonna get through this real quick. In my prediction, I honestly believe that Warrington can beat Lara. Okay, I think he can beat him. I think he went into that fight being very aggressive, which he is. He normally is, and he's beat a good amount of people. He beat Frampton. He beat Lee Selby. He beat Kiko Martinez. I mean, he's always had an aggressive style. But the problem with that fight, and you notice in the first round, Lara is very, very, very heavy-handed. He doesn't have the resume on paper. Didn't look like he would be much of a problem for Warrington. But once that fight started, you can tell that you can hear how heavy-handed he was. All right. And Warrington has never been a big puncher. Warrington didn't show him enough respect. You can tell that Warrington was trying to get him out of there quickly. All right. And they started exchanging, and Warrington tried to trade with this guy, and he eventually got clipped, which led to him getting knocked down, which led to him fighting on wobbly legs for rounds. I don't think he's ever recovered. He ever recovered from that first knockdown. All right. I don't think he ever recovered from that knockdown. And he lost the fight. He got stopped brutally. All right. He got knocked out. And it is what it is. No. So now he's going to fight him in a rematch. And me looking at the fight, I think Warrington, if he is going to be able to box, and when I think of Warrington in that fight, and when I think of Warrington's style in general, I think of Amir Khan getting knocked out by Danny Garcia. I know he's been knocked out by a few people. But one thing that I learned with Amir Khan and his style since the Danny Garcia loss, when I compare the both, because they both have quick hands, they both like to throw a lot of combinations real fast, not a lot of power. But what I will say is that I think Warrington needs to turn those 4 or 5 punch combinations down a notch. All right. Bring those combinations down to like 2, 3 punch combinations tops. All right. Step in, pick your spot, and get out of there. Throw your combos, get out of there. Don't sit there just rumbling with this guy. This guy has heavy hands. You know he can hurt you now. Okay. He's slower than you, but you sat in the pocket. You try to trade and exchange with him. You try to trade hooks with him. If you're going to hook with him, keep that right hand up while you're hooking. Protect yourself. And that's it. That's pretty much it. And I think that Warrington, if he follows those steps, I think he should be fine beating him. I think he can beat Lara to the punch. All right. I think he can outscore Lara. I think he can outbox Lara. I think he can outthink Lara, And I think I'm going to pick him to win the rematch if he doesn't go in there trying to get the knockout. If he's going in there just if you're going to get a knockout, you got to work for it. Don't go in there trying to just clobber this dude. He already knocked you out the first time. Go in there, fight smart, lower those combinations down. That's what Amir Khan did after the Danny Garcia. When he went on to fight Louis Collazo and David Alexander and those guys before Canelo, he was learning how to pick his spots a little better, use those combinations and move. Pop, move. Use that lateral movement. All right. Just seeing some feinting in there. Let's see a little bit more. All right. Go in there, use that high guard if you have to. Switch it up. But fighting the same way is going to get him knocked out again, because Lara has definitely got that pop. But I think Josh Warrington is gonna. I'm predicting him to win the rematch. Not that I don't think that Lara shouldn't have won. I'm not trying to take any credit away from him, because that was a legit win. It was very legit. All right. But I think Warrington can definitely capitalize on those mistakes he made in that first fight. Warrington? I think if Warrington loses, it could be possible. Yeah, I think so. Because there's not much around. There's not much. If you can't beat Lara, I don't think he beat Galahad, and I wouldn't pick him to beat him in a rematch. I mean, he might beat him in a rematch. You never know. But I don't think I thought Galahad got robbed. And if you look at everybody else that's available, there's no easier fights around. And if you're gonna lose and not have a title, this is not even like a title fight, a title match here. So it's very possible. And I remember when he first lost, he was contemplating retirement. So hopefully, if he's mentally strong and he's mentally confident and he's ready and he have a good strategy, I think he's capable of winning the fight. But he has to be careful and he has to be sharp for 12 rounds and he has to prepare for 12 rounds. Project Jab, what's up, bro? Thank you. Any thoughts on Jake Paul having a rematch clause for the fight? Listen, I didn't even know that. I didn't know that. All right. But if that's true, I'm not surprised. Jake Paul is a ticket seller. He is a pay-per-view seller. Like, he's a top name in the sport right now. Regardless of who he's facing, he's a top guy as far as, popularity. So I'm not surprised. He just signed that Showtime deal. He's making a lot of money. He has successful pay-per-views. I believe that this pay-per-view is going to be much more successful than the Ben Askren fight was. This is definitely a good look for even Tyron Woodley. He's never been in the opportunity as great, and he's a all-time great welterweight MMA fighter. And even with all of those wins over there, great wins over there in the UFC. Josh Koscheck, Stephen Thompson, Robbie Lawler. I mean, I know Robbie was a little bit towards the end of his career at that fight, because Lawler has been around since back in the day when I used to watch him fight when he had hair. All those guys are good. Those are incredible wins. All right. But, he's an older guy now. He's 39. And I think he just turned, I don't think he's turning 40 this year. I think he turns 40 next year. But anyway, regardless, he's up there in age. He's coming off 4 losses, MMA losses. And this is his first pro boxing match, against a guy that I feel is a little bit more dangerous than people give him credit for. All right. I don't think that Jake Paul is world level or championship level or anything like that. I'm not even sure if he would be a ranked top 10 fighter in a sanctioning body if he were to take this seriously and go through real boxers, full-time boxers. All right. But when he's fighting guys that are MMA fighters or other celebrities who are not full-time boxers, he's going to beat them all or most. We'll see with the Woodley fight. I think Woodley is a much greater challenge than the last few fights he had. I did see the fight with the other YouTube guy. I don't even know who he was, because I didn't know who the Paul brothers were until, I honestly didn't know. I never heard of them before. I didn't really start paying attention to them until Logan Paul fought KSI, the rematch. And I didn't even know who KSI was. I didn't know. And that's not to say I'm not trying to take anything away from them. It's just that they're YouTubers and I don't know their channel. So there was no way for me to know, but after they did their numbers with the zone thing, and then the whole thing with Jake Paul is, I didn't know who Jake Paul was until he fought Nate Robinson and knocked him out. I didn't know who he was at that time. I didn't even know there were 2 Pauls. I thought Logan, it was confusing for me for a while. All right. But look, let's talk about the fight here. Tyron Woodley has explosive power. When he was in his prime, and I'm talking about like a few years ago now, he was very explosive in the UFC. He was always explosive in the UFC. All right. Big power at that division. He's always been ripped. He's a jack dude, very fast, very big, great wrestler, but big right hand. He used to knock out guys with one punch. That's the kind of guy he was. All right. Tremendous athlete. All right. World level wrestler. You know what I'm saying? Elite wrestler. He was all that. But the last 4 fights he's lost. Okay. And he's lost pretty badly. Very durable. Okay. I believe his first loss from back in the day was the only loss. I believe he actually got knocked out, like from kicks and punches. At least that's the only one that I'm familiar with. The other losses, the more recent losses, have all been kind of by submission and just being outworked to decisions, beat up. The fight against Colby Covington, that fight, he had broken a rib. But if you watch the fight, he was getting beat down all the way up until that last round where he hurt himself while he was on the ground. Even the fight against Usman just dominated him, you know, just outworked him. And he's like, again, these fights, you go back and watch these fights. Woodley was getting outworked, not just on the ground, but he was getting outstriked, you know, while they were standing up. You know what I'm saying? So being out punched and kicked and stuff by Colby Covington and even Usman and UFC, you know, I was watching the Covington fight this morning because I knew I was going to talk about the fight today. I went back and watched it, and I watched that fight specifically. And this is the thing about this situation, that situation. If you saw that fight and you saw the lead up to that fight, right, you would know that Colby Covington is all about, you know, he's the guy with the MAGA hat, you know, the Make American Great, the conservative, pro-Trump. He's been playing that card. He played that card with Usman, right? The African fighter, Nigerian fighter. And he played it with, what's his name? Woodley, right? Woodley was going with Black Lives Matter, and they was going through that whole thing, right? Selling the fight. Now, as much trash talk as Jake Paul and Woodley is doing right now, you would think after watching the Colby, you know, leading up to the Colby Covington fight, you would think that Woodley would show up for that fight. Not saying he didn't. Maybe he was just too old. Maybe he's just way too past his prime. I mean, he hasn't won a fight. But you would think he would have showed up for that fight, doing the whole, you know how the whole thing go with BLM and the MAGA people, right? You know what I'm saying? They going at it. So him being a black guy going after the white guy, you would think that he would go out. He didn't show up that night. He didn't. He got beat down to the very end, you know, and he was getting outlanded when the hands was being thrown, you know, which is one of his best strengths. So to go from that and to go into boxing now, where you're fighting, yeah, you're not fighting an elite boxer. Yes, you are fighting a YouTuber, but you're fighting a YouTuber that know how to box. He knows how to box. You know, I'm not no hater. Like, I'm not saying, again, he's not world level. He's not championship level. He might not even be a top 10 ranked level, but he knows how to box. You get what I'm saying? So going into this fight, if anything, you would have thought that Woodley would have showed up for that fight, and he didn't. Now he's showing up in a more unfamiliar territory to fight a guy that has more experience than him when it comes to the boxing thing, you know. And Woodley looks good. Like he's fit. He looks ready. You know, he looks a lot leaner. So does Jake Paul. But I'm not buying into any of that. All I care about is what happened in the ring. You know what I'm saying? Because the BLM thing and the MAGA thing wasn't enough for him to take over. They sold it. They sold it because that's what people are into. They're into that. People are all into that. You know, so everybody sold it and made it about race. It became about race. It's like the Usman fight. It became about that. But once they got in the ring, I seen Woodley come out to Colby Covington and put his fist out. After all that talking, Colby didn't even raise. He didn't even want to do that fist pump. Thanks, Punch Drunk. Thank you for the donation. By the way, brother, I see it. Appreciate it, bro. Appreciate it, man. You've been killing it. You've been killing it with the interviews. You know, I seen you out there at the Pacquiao thing. I did shoot you. It's probably real busy, but I did shoot you a text. But yo, thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Thank you. And make sure y'all subscribe to Punch Drunk Boxing, man. But yo, this is what I'm saying. People are buying up into all this hype. Don't feed into the hype. If you think Woodley's going to win, base it on who he is as a fighter, what he does in the ring. Don't go into all this black, white. I was in a barbershop yesterday. I was in there for 2 hours yesterday. You know what? I happened to be walking in, and my barber was cutting white dude's hair, right? So this is a black barbershop. We gonna be honest, right? So you know how that go. I walk in there, and they talking about the fight. So you know I had to chime in on that shit. So I'm walking in, you know, I have my mask on. I'm sitting there, and I'm listening to the conversation. I'm like, what they talking about? And I heard them like, Jake Paul. And the guy that's getting the cut, the white guy, is arguing with one of the barbers who's black. And he's like, you know, he's telling him, like, you only paying for this fight for Jake Paul. He's like, nah, I'm paying for this fight for Woodley. And I'm like, yeah, but when's the last time you bought a Woodley fight on pay-per-view? And then they going back and forth with that, right? So I'm listening and I'm listening. And I'm like, see, this is what sells the fight. People don't like to say it, but it's the truth. Because of that bias. The white guy that was in the chair, he's biased for Jake Paul. He's saying that he don't care for him to win, but he was defending him all the way. And a black barber was defending Tyron Woodley. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with that. When you're disrespecting other people for race, that's when it gets a little crazy. But it's nothing wrong with going with your own. But right now, we're not going with that. Right now, we're talking about the actual fight. All right? There is a difference. We can have a bias. I want Woodley to win. You know why? Because I've been watching him for years. Jake Paul, I just found out who he was maybe a year ago with the name Robinson. I don't know who he is. You know, I don't know him. You know, I don't watch his YouTube. I don't subscribe. I don't even know what they do. But I respect the fact that he can fight. Dude can fight. He got hands. He definitely got hands. You can't deny that. Now, in this fight here, I was trying to figure this out because I feel like Woodley can definitely have the power to knock him out, right? And especially if he sets up that right hand and he counters, you know, if he can throw that overhand right over Jake Paul's jab, which he tends to leave out there a little too long. Ben Askren even clocked him over the head with one early in that fight. If he's able to land that punch that he's knocked out so many people with in the MMA world, if he's able to hit him with that, that's a shot that Askren, who's not a striker or not a boxer or any of that, right? Terrible, probably one of the easiest fighters that you can put in that position in a boxing ring to beat. Nate Robinson just didn't have any boxing experience, right? He knew how to box. I mean, he's boxed before, but he's never fought on a professional level. So if they put a guy like Woodley, who was a KO artist at one point, and he's able to set up that right hand, which is what he has. That's what he has. He was able to set it up in an MMA match. If he's able to land that, yes, I can see him. If he connects clean, I can see him knocking out Jake Paul if he lands that one shot. But the thing is, the way it's being thrown in an MMA fight, you know, I seen him throwing it in ways where it's not going to really work with boxing. You know, boxing is a completely different style. When you're fighting in an MMA match, you're concerned about a whole different other things like a takedown and stuff like that. A kick, takedowns. You don't know what's coming at you. So throwing punches in an MMA or being a counter puncher in MMA, you're still a lot more limited than an actual boxer in a boxing match. All right. So throwing these Superman punches and throwing it in ways where it's not traditional in boxing, it's not going to really work. Plus, not only that, you got to work on conditioning. You got to work on endurance. All right. Those big shots that he used to throw and land, like the way he knocked out Koscheck or the way he knocked out Lawler, those punches can only go for so long. You have to worry about a guy slipping that shot and countering you, and those MMA fighters weren't at that level. So I don't know if that punch, but as far as boxing, pure boxing, I think he needs more time. I don't know if he's had enough time and experience to really work. I know Floyd's been working with him. I know in New York is crazy with the thunder and lightning right now. I'm sure you guys hearing it in the background, but I know he's working on things. He looks like he's got in good shape. He looks very lean, but will it be enough? I personally think he needs more time. Not only that, but I try not to get into conspiracies too much. I try not to get into the politics too much. I try not to, but I can't just ignore it. I can't just ignore it. Jake Paul and his brother are potentially becoming like two of the biggest highly paid fighters as far as purse is concerned that's out there. I know they're not real boxers, right? But we cannot ignore that these guys are superstars, right? I just can't see Jake Paul losing to Woodley now. If you understand what I say, like he just signed a Showtime deal. There are going to be more fights to come, and Woodley could definitely derail him, but will it happen? I'm talking about I don't want to go and say that this fight might be fixed because I definitely don't think the Askren fight was fixed because I don't think Askren had any sort of danger for Jake Paul. I thought that was a pretty one to predict. This one, not so easy to predict because of the power and explosiveness of Woodley. And plus, he was a championship level. He's a top elite KO artist over there in the UFC when he was in his prime. So this is definitely a winnable fight for him. He's bringing a lot more than all these other guys that Jake Paul fought. But is it fixed? You have to wonder. Is it fixed? Devin says there's a rematch call for jokes side, so there ain't no fix. If there was a fix, yeah, there's a rematch clause. I understand what you're saying. Cool. But still, there being a rematch clause, right? I'm not saying it's fixed. I'm just throwing it out there because this is something that I've heard multiple times. This is something that we were talking about yesterday in a barbershop. This is what people are saying. People are talking about it. It makes sense. I know there's a rematch clause. I understand that. But losing a fight, even if there's a rematch clause, if you get knocked out, there's a lot of rematches clauses and stuff. When a guy gets knocked out, they get knocked out. Sometimes they exercise a clause. If it's a real upset, yeah, they're going to exercise a clause. But there's a lot of times where fights have rematch clauses, but the loss was so dominant, it was like, oh, I'm not going to fight that guy again. Why even bother? Because now he's actually stepping up. This is not, it won't be, it's not like Woodley don't have a chance of winning this fight. He has a great chance of winning this fight. It wouldn't be like a major upset like Woodley. No, Woodley is the fighter here. Remember that. He's not the YouTuber. He's the fighter. He's just not the boxer. And I don't know what the odds are because I'm not a gambler. I'm not really paying attention to that stuff. But you have to think. You have to think. It's possible. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying it's possible. African G, thank you for the donation. Is it possible this fight could be fixed? Well, that's what I was just addressing. It's possible. It's possible. I hope it isn't. And there's no way to really know because there's just no way to know. Because if Jake Paul, and thank you for the donation, brother. If Jake Paul ends up knocking him out, in the first round, it is what it is. Like, there's no way to prove that the fight was fixed and that Woodley just took a dive. There's no way to prove that. But it's something that you could at least, and this is what makes this prediction so hard, because I think Woodley is definitely capable of winning the fight. He's capable of winning it. But I don't know. I've never seen him box before. All I've seen is some clips of him training in a gym. And the last few times I've seen him fight in the MMA ring, he was getting dominated. He's lost his last 4, and he's almost 40. Devin, you feel that the Askren fight was fixed? I don't think so. Askren, if you look at his MMA fights, he's been he was always a terrible striker. He's not quick. He wasn't powerful. He was a wrestler. Yes, I think Anthony Yard do fight tomorrow. Yeah, by the way, yes. 3-1 Paul as of yesterday. I think Paul is gonna win, and I'm not and I want Woodley to win. I'm picking a safe pick. I'm gonna go with the safe pick, and I feel like Jake Paul is a safe pick. I know what he can do in the ring. Woodley, I don't know. I know what he can do in an MMA match. What I will say is this though. And I really hope Woodley wins. Because I don't really care for Jake or the Paul brothers, but I was watching that press conference. It was a lot of things that Jake was saying that I didn't like. He was saying he was doing a lot of talking. A lot of people do talking. Like Mayweather did a lot of talking. Roy Jones did a lot of talking. But he was saying like, yo, this is easy, as far as boxing. He was being real arrogant. He was like, look, Tommy Fury is behind me. There's a reason. He was being a little arrogant. And I don't think he has respect for the sport like that. I think he has a hustler's mentality like a lot of other boxers today do. A lot of these newer boxers, they are actually boxers, right? But they all like hustlers, which is a lot of people came that way after Floyd, right? Because they saw the money that he made. He was a hustler. You know what I'm saying? He knew how to take care of himself. He knew how to do, him and Al, the negotiations, yada, yada, yada. They knew what they were doing. And a lot of these fighters that have improved shit are like that. But the thing with Jake, he's like, this is easy. Like this, when you say this is easy, yeah, you're not fighting boxers, but you're talking about the sport. It rubbed me the wrong way. Me personally, it just rubbed me the wrong way. It's like, I was rooting against you anyway, but it kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know. I didn't like when he said that one thing. You know what I'm saying? African G, thank you again. Who do you think has the mental advantage? I can tell you this. I think Jake Paul does. I think Woodley is he seems to be more confident now, but I can tell you in those early press conferences when Jake Paul was like, get the tattoo, yada, of my face on you, all that. I felt like Jake Paul was much more confident than Woodley. Woodley didn't strike me as a guy that was really confident, but now he seems a lot, and I know that they had all of that back and forth with the family and the press conference and all that. Like I said, I'm not really buying it. No one got hurt. No one fought. It was just a bunch of people that almost fought. You know how that goes. A bunch of a bunch of Tay Rocks. If you watch battle rap, if you watch battle rap, you know who I'm talking about. A bunch of people that was almost about to fight. I don't really care about that. Woodley seems more confident now because I'm sure he's trained for hard, and I'm sure he has a good game plan, and he looks to be in great shape. He looks in much better shape than what he was like a couple months back. All right, when they first announced this. All right. So I'm hoping he wins, but I would still give the mental advantage with Jake Paul because he's very confident in himself. And I don't think it's fake. I think it's a real thing. All right. I don't think the Ben Askren fight was I thought that was a real knockout against a fighter that he wasn't a good boxer. And in the UFC, he wasn't a good striker. At least Woodley is an elite striker while he was there or while he was in his prime. Project Jab made a point. Good comment. And I also agree. And this is why I'm kind of leaning more towards Paul. I see Woodley gassing out. You know what I'm saying? But we haven't seen Paul in a long fight neither. So maybe he's the one that can get tired. But I think Paul overall is just more experienced than him. I think he's more experienced than him, and I'm more concerned about the endurance of Woodley. I think that is it's not that he doesn't have the experience, but I also worry about the endurance because he's durable. He was durable in taking punches straight to the face. He was very durable there. So I expect him to be durable now. I just worry about in this fight, and I think it's going to go rounds. I'm more concerned about how long can he keep fighting at a high level, being that he's 39 years old. He's definitely slowed down. And he's boxing. You got to learn that. You got to learn how to pace yourself through this, Charles Edward Cheese, thank you for the donation. All right, appreciate it every single time. Wave, shenanigans, big time. Your hood hold me back. Energy in the crown. Yeah, I didn't like that, but you got to sell the fight, so I understand. I'm not really into it. I'm not really into all of that extra stuff. That's just extra to me. I care about what happens in the ring. Again, before I was talking about Kobe Covington, how they was using the Make American Great versus the BLM thing to promote their fights. I wasn't feeling that because I feel like a lot of people now are just using that to promote themselves. I don't think the causes. It's not really there anymore. A lot of people are using it to make money. That's how I feel when it comes to that stuff and other things, right? I really don't go into politics and all of that on the channel. But at the same time, I'm aware when someone's just using it to sell things for themselves, and I'm not just talking about fights or athletes or any kind of celebrity. I'm just talking people even on a much lower level, hashtagging stuff to promote themselves because they want the attention towards them. And I felt like all of that happened, but when it was fight time, when it was time to throw those hands, Willie didn't represent, and that's why I don't really buy into all that back and forth. I was listening to he was talking about the green light. He disrespected my mama and he was talking real crazy, and I was like, all right, well, it's good to promote the fight, but I don't really think anything's going to happen. Let's get in the ring, African G, I'm not going to argue your point. I respectfully disagree. I don't even disagree with you. I agree with this statement. He is fighting a real striker. And this is why this, out of all of the fights, is the first time I was interested. This is out of all of them, all these YouTube, Logan Paul, even I didn't even care for Logan Paul and Mayweather. I honestly really didn't. This is the first one here because I think this is the most equal out of all of them that we've seen so far. You got one that's a little bit more experienced as a boxer. Excuse me. But then you got one that's a real elite fighter, maybe not boxer, but a fighter who was a striker, who had power. But this is a different sport. Can he do as well in this sport? You know what I'm saying? Anderson Silva recently showed that he can box. Anderson Silva actually looked like a boxer that night. Outside of a few things, I think he actually looked like a fighter, like a boxer, you know, but he's had experience. He had some pro fights, you know, and he's probably the greatest striker of all time, you know, over there on that side. So when he fought Chavez Jr., and I know it's Chavez Jr. because Chavez Jr. usually loses to anyone at this point. But still, if you're just watching Silva and seeing what he's doing, remember Chavez Jr. was still a championship level fighter at one point. Silva looked much more advanced of a boxer. And I don't know if Woodley is like that. Woodley might have more power than Silva as a boxer. I don't know. But I wouldn't think Woodley would look better than Anderson Silva. That's just me. I think going into this fight, Silva looked a little he looked really smooth to me. He didn't look like a guy that was trying to figure things out to me. He looked more experienced than me. I don't know. That's just me. That's the way I see it. What's up, bro? My boy, Team Hazardous. For Jake, this is a step up in quality of opposition for Woodley. This is a challenge of a new sport. Woodley is 50% striker, 50% wrestler. Yes, absolutely. But now we can't include the wrestling part because that's not going to be an option. You know, it's not going to be an option here. So how much did he learn in this little bit of time working to this fight? And, you know, I was watching it. It was a great interview, by the way, the All the Smoke podcast on Showtime with Matt Barnes. That was a great interview they did with Tyron Woodley. It was excellent. I watched the whole thing this morning. It was a great interview, man. It was probably the best interview of Woodley I've ever heard. They really went back into the history of things and them preparing for this fight. You know, it was great. It was a great interview. So, you know, be sure to check that out. You know, especially if you're a fan of Woodley, or even if you're not a fan of Woodley and you want to get to know a little bit more about him. Definitely check that special out, that interview that they did. It was a good interview. All right, so this is a point I wanted to bring up, and this goes back to the Conor McGregor fight against Mayweather, right? Do you guys feel, and this is for everybody, and I want you guys to answer, all right? Do you feel that Woodley should bring a little bit of awkwardness to this fight, being that he's not a pure boxer like the way Conor McGregor did in his fight? Do you think that he should throw certain punches that are just not natural as a boxer, like the way Conor was doing with Floyd? What if he's going to take some of those things that Conor did with Floyd, you know, and switching stances and stuff? What if he does certain things that are just a little bit awkward for a boxer with that power? Now, it might put him in some dangers as far as defensively, but that could be somewhat of an advantage going into this fight, being that you're fighting a guy that has more experience in the boxing ring than you. You know, do you think there's anything that Woodley would be able to do in this fight here that could be a little bit more unnatural for a boxer? Caleb, calm down, sir. Calm down. Calm down. Like, you're doing a little too much. I'm only comparing because they're both UFC fighters involved. That's the only reason why I'm comparing. Team Hazardous says 100% he should. The point is to win. It's legal to do it, especially against a YouTuber. Yes. Yes. I had to block that guy. He's talking a little too aggressive in the comments. No. I'm not talking about doing anything illegal, Devin. Not anything illegal. Just be a little bit awkward. Like what McGregor was doing in his fight with Floyd is every time they were like tied up, he was just hitting Floyd. He was doing a hammer fist thing. Don't do that. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying the way that maybe he throws his punches, maybe switching his stance, throwing punches at weird angles. Maybe I don't know what he's been working on, you know. But yo, let me just say this, and I say this to think: what if he throws a Superman punch in a damn boxing fight? You know, I don't think I've ever seen that before. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. You just don't know what may happen in this fight. You know, but I'm just saying, when we're thinking, like, since he is fighting an MMA fighter, maybe he could do something that is a little bit different from what we used to seeing. You know, and I think that would be beneficial. Or maybe not now, but if he continues to box, right, and he gets a little bit more time to work on his craft, maybe bring a little bit awkward. That's what I was thinking. Like, maybe, you know what? Just not, yes, learn the basics, right? But bring a little bit of what you were doing in the MMA world over to boxing. You know what I'm saying? Might work. I just haven't really thought of too many things. But as long as it all is illegal, you know, don't kick the dude. Don't, like, you know, trying to pick, I don't know. I don't know what he would do. I don't know. Project says that awkwardness always helps, but I think McGregor was naturally unorthodox rather than just applying the game plan. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Solid hit. 1 foot out the door says a solid hit and game plan might go out the window. Sliding counter said Woodley has been acceptable. Oh, damn. Your comment is has been acceptable to punches that loop around his guard. Yes, he has. That's very true. Journeyman, what up, Boxer Man? What's up, Journey? What's going on? Peter says if Woodley gets in and out and keeps his punches straight, he'll do good. Yeah, I mean, I personally think Woodley needs to use. I think what Woodley needs to do, because I seen a video of him and he was like kind of doing the shoulder roll thing, and I'm like, maybe stay away from that a little bit. You know, maybe you need a little bit more time to work on that, because there's a lot of fighters and a lot of pro fighters that has much more experience in fighting and boxing that tried to switch into that and they got hit and knocked out. You know, what was a fight where Andre Berto lost to Ortiz? I'm not sure if it was the Guerrero fight. I think it was a Guerrero fight where Andre Berto came out shoulder rolled in. I'm like, oh, we never seen him fight that way before. But at the time, you know, Floyd, you know, a lot of guys were mimicking Floyd, even though it's not a Floyd stance. Not saying that. But a lot of guys started to come out and start to fight similar to the way Floyd was doing at the time. And Andre Berto was getting hit with everything that was coming at him. And then he had to force a fight, go back to fight in the way that he would normally fight. You know what I'm saying? So I think, me personally, I think Woodley, in order to close the distance between him and Paul, he's kind of got some quickness to his feet. Hopefully he won't just be coming straight in all the time. But if he is, you know, use that high guard to try to counter if that's something that they've been working on. I really don't know, you know, but there's several things I think Woodley, I actually believe that this is a real fight. It's a real fight to me. It's a real fight. It's a real fight. It's not between two elite boxers, but it's a real fight, you know. Shane said, you think Woodley has a decent chance, or are you convinced that Jake's performances and sparring footage so far? I think Woodley has a great chance. I actually think this is like a 50-50 fight. It's just that I'm leaning I'm leaning towards Paul because I know what he can do, and it's a safe pick because I don't know. But I think Woodley is very capable of knocking him out. You know, this is a real fight. You know, it's a real fight. You know, and I don't have a problem. See, and I was tweeting earlier, and you know, I don't think I'm going to be on Twitter for too long. Like, I'm just going to show up here and there because I'm on there and I see a lot that's going on there, and it's not for me. Like, Twitter boxing is kind of weird to me. It's a little, but let me go back to my point. I said earlier, you know, that Tommy Fury was fighting a guy. Let me look up his name real quick. I had his name over here somewhere. Tommy Fury is fighting a guy named Anthony Taylor. Now, understand, you want to get on the card, right? Cool. You want to get on the card because a lot of people are going to be watching this fight. So, guys, you know, for Amanda Serrano to get in, the Amanda Serrano fight is a real fight. But for Amanda Serrano fighting Mercado, and everybody else like Dubois, right, and Baranchek and Fury. When I look at these fights, when I see that Fury is fighting an MMA fighter that is the size or fighting at the weight of as a welterweight, right? He's been fighting underneath 150, and he's 5'6", 5'7", and Tommy Fury is fighting that guy. Tommy Fury, the light heavy, that's 6 foot tall, is fighting a guy that's an MMA fighter, all right? Only has one pro boxing match years ago that he lost. Tommy Fury is fighting that guy. He had to fight that guy to get on this card. This is what I'm saying. Like, the real fight here, the most realistic fight on this card is actually the Jake Paul YouTuber fight. Every other fight is just a stay busy fight for everybody else. But the Fury fight is just straight disrespectful. So when I hear that these guys are ruining boxing, when I hear that, I'm like, wait a minute. Look at who the real fighters are actually fighting. Why is Tommy Fury, and I know he's still a prospect at this stage. Tommy Fury has only 6 fights, so he's still a prospect at this age, at this stage of his career. But why the hell would he be fighting that guy? He might as well fight me. He might as well fight anyone in this comment section. He might as well. It's the same shit. You know, he's fighting an MMA fighter who is not even an elite MMA fighter on top of that. He's not even he's not a Woodley. He's not even a Ben Askren. He's not neither one of those. But Tommy Fury is fighting this guy? I have no idea what's going on. I know this guy is part of Jake Paul's camp, and I know he sparred with him. So maybe, you know, and I think a lot of people are talking about Tommy Fury. You know, people are saying that maybe Tommy Fury is the first guy that Jake Paul might fight. I don't know. I think that's a little bit too risky for Jake. But I don't know what's going on. Disco, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate this the support. Always going to keep it boxing. Always going to keep it boxing. Always. Joe, I don't know what the PAC pay-per-view numbers are. You know, I don't even know if they've been released. I don't know. You know, the only thing I've heard recently was more about PAC possibly having a rematch with Ugas, you know. But I don't really know anything about the pay-per-view numbers yet, you know, and I'm not even a pay-per-view number. When's the last time I made a video talking about the viewership of a fight or the pay-per-view numbers for the fight? I don't even do those kind of videos, you know. A lot of people do, and you know what? It's nothing wrong with it. It's just I don't make videos about that stuff. I just want to see the fight, and most of the time we're not getting the fights we want and we need. All right, but yo, I'm really into this fight. I'm probably not going to be able to cover it live, unfortunately, but I'm going to try to find a way to do it. You know, I do have plans, but you know, I really want to cover this fight live. Like, I really want to be on here, man, because I think it's going to be a good time. You know, but yeah, I don't, Joe. Yeah, no need for apology. It's just that I don't know. I honestly don't know about the numbers, man. Punch Perf Boxing, trying to get you on the channel one day, bro. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. And if oh, I did. I remember getting your DMs. I know you have, but it's no disrespect. It's just that I rarely even have time to do my content, you know. And I know I am a guest, or I do invite guests to the channel every once in a blue, but you know, with me, I probably make the least amount of content than compared to everybody else on here. You know, I try to stay active, and sometimes I go a few weeks without making any content. All right. All right, but yo, I'm rooting for Woodley. I want Woodley to win. I want Woodley to knock him out. Even if Woodley is to knock him out, I don't think it ends the whole YouTuber thing. It's just too much money in boxers in boxing to end this. And I think this is just the beginning. I think there are going to be more celebrities, not just YouTubers, not just TikTokers, but I think there's going to be more and more people that are going to come out, and it's going to be more athletes. All right. And it's always been happening. But I think right now there's going to be a bigger wave of more. You saw Chad Johnson recently fighting on here. There are going to be more athletes. There are going to be more celebrities that are going to get on this. People that are in shape to do it. That's going to do this because, yo, it is what it is. The money is there. The money is there. And now you have the real boxers fighting on their undercard. All right. Dubois, Fury, you know, Serrano, a champ, a pound for pound female boxer, is on the undercard of Jake Paul. So this is just the beginning. This is not going to stop. People want Jake Paul to lose because they want this to stop. Oh no, it's not going anywhere. What we need are for the real fighters to fight each other. That's what we need. All this mess that's going on at the lightweight division, the welterweight division, the middleweight division, which is the middleweight division. And I'll end the video with this because I got to roll. All this stuff with Jamal Charlo, you know, he got arrested the other day, whatever. You know, him and Andre going back and forth. They've been going back and forth for damn near a decade now. You know, they've been going back and forth for damn near a decade, and he still didn't fight. They ain't fight each other at 154, and they ain't fight each other at 160. On top of that, Triple G, who's available, didn't fight neither one. I don't care who he's supposed to fight in December. Triple G didn't fight neither one of them too. You know, and I know that Triple G fought better people. I know he fought Canelo. I know. Listen, these guys are a problem. These real fighters are a problem. You got Maguia's going to fight Deverenchenko, which is going to be a mandatory. How did that become mandatory when Deverenchenko lost his last two fights? And he hasn't even been active. He hasn't even picked up a win. How does he just suddenly become a mandatory? How did what's this guy's name? Bogdan Dinu. The WBA had him at the top ranking randomly. That's the problem with boxing. Jake Paul, he's his own thing. He's not the problem. These fighters are the problem. These fighters that's not fighting each other, that's the problem. The lightweight division, the middleweight division, the welterweight division, and the heavyweight division, those divisions are the problem. Those are the real problems because there's a lot of big names in those divisions, and none of them are fighting each other. Project Jab says, how do I feel about fights taking place on Sunday nights? I don't like it, man. It's actually screwing me up. Tomorrow night would have been perfect for me. Tomorrow night, I would have been all over this. I do not like the Sunday night fights, you know, and I don't like Floyd and Logan Paul was Sunday night too. I do not like the Sunday night thing for me. I don't, you know. So that's just how I feel about that. All right. Anyway, all right, listen, it's gonna be a short video. I can only do an hour today. But I'll be back this week. I think I'm ready to really start talking about Joshua and Usyk, man. We gotta get into that this week. Early, if you're just coming in, make sure. Oh yeah, by the way, please smash that like button before you guys go. Hit that thumbs up for me. Appreciate it. I'm sure the only thumbs down I'm probably gonna get is from that guy that was on here talking crazy in the comments. But hit that like button. If you're new, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell notification button as well. You gotta hit that bell because it's gonna alert you whenever I drop new content. And I'll see you guys on the next one. All right. I'll be here this week discussing Usyk and Joshua. It's time to really start talking about that and some of the other upcoming fights. All right. And I'll see you guys later. All right. Peace.